Okay, my name's Dave Palmer, that's my alter ego as well. I don't want to talk so much, I want to say a couple of things. Baya nunga budia ni Buddha. Nunga budia ni Buddha. Hora ye Buddha. Nunga budia ni Buddha. Nunga budnim. I pay my respects to the old people for this area. They know me, they know my smells and my eccentricities, and acknowledge that we're sitting on Noongar country. That's the first thing I'd like to say. The second is, this isn't my story. This isn't... your two ideas are fantastic. I'm stoked. That's the highlight for today for me. I've been lucky enough to travel along with a number of organisations in the north of Australia who are directly or indirectly involved in this work here. People here familiar with what I call the Aboriginal Ranger movement? Yeah, cool. So how would you describe it to your mother?
I describe, because my mother's very conservative, I describe everything very sceptical and to try and get into an argument. So I would say it's a shitty white man attempt to fund so-called jobs and say that we're paying for Noongar to work on country, but at the same time still within Wajala management models.
Okay. Hopefully your mother's nice.
I've only got a very limited understanding, but actually I was listening to Fred Chaney talk about Aboriginal determination, particularly for regional communities, and it's actually about giving back ownership of the land through management that provides economic opportunity and an opportunity for self-governance in some way as well, if it's done well.
Nice mother. Yeah. I describe it as a movement. I describe it as a movement that has its genesis over many generations, probably thousands of generations. It has its genesis in a set of knowledge systems and cultural practices where there is a strong connection between what Noongars would call Buddha, what Noongars would call Mort, what Noongars would call Kala, what Noongars would call Kadajin. A strong connection between country, as Robert last night described it, the connection between country and family and the making of family, fertility. So deep ideas around the connection between country and economy. I describe it as a movement that goes back way further than governments that like to take credit for some of the things that they support. Aboriginal Ranger teams were being piloted well before Peter Garrett introduced the Working on Country program. It's a movement that enjoys some considerable ecological relationship between social and economic ecologists and traditional systems. It's a movement that takes seriously, is often described by the notion of a two-toolkit approach. If we've got any educators in the room, in the 1970s, with people like Mr. Yunupingu, who passed away, the school principal and rock star, involved in education movements called two-way learning, where the notion was that you combine Western literacies and numeracies and systems of knowledge with Yungu systems. That notion of bringing together Western science with traditional knowledge is a strong element in the Ranger movement. And I describe it as I would draw on a lot of the metaphors that Indigenous groups, particularly in the north, are using about the reflaming of the coal fires of culture and law and healthy country that have been simmering underneath. Often other Australians think they're dead, they're long gone, they're extinct, through various traditional practices meeting science. This little piece here goes for about 7 or 8 minutes. It's produced by NAILSBIL, which is the Northern Australian Indigenous Land and Sea Alliance, Management Alliance, and they've supported a lot of the range of work. And they produced this piece here to try and articulate first and foremost to an audience of Indigenous people what's going on in the reclamation of Aboriginal fire management practices. The secondary benefit of this is that it's a great educational tool for knuckleheads like me in understanding this work. So that's all I want to say today. 2 questions I ask you to contemplate. What do you see in terms of content? So what's going on? What does this tell you about the relationship between carbon abatement, traditional fire management practices and culture? And the second is has to do with the process of the making of this thing. Because one of the features of the Ranger team is that it has a deep, what I call, history of community-led generation. So that's what I say to you, Mum.
I've been growing up these kids good way to use them but fire properly. We use them but fire for a lot of different things. It's really important for us, Mo. We've been always burning about this country. You've got to burn country the right way for the right reason. Most country you've got to burn early part like the dry season before it gets too hot and dry. This keeps fires little one and it breaks up the country. Burnt areas, unburnt areas and new plants. That stops them big wildfires. Why do we use slow, cool fire around rainforests or outstation to protect them, or for bush tucker, you know? All the plants and animals right up like that food chain we can look after, and we can pull out most wildfires. Burning properly away and keep our country healthy and keep our people strong. We can burn them up this country as we travel, clearing the path. Pretty soon, New Grass can bring them in biggest mob of wallabies and other Gurwan bush tucker. But not many families live like they real one country now. Muddy is a little bit too hard for countrymen to get back near their homeland like they used to. A lot of people don't get out to burn properly like they should. In our country, people are waiting for us to come back. We've been crying for him. My grandfather, him and passed him down to me that wisdom to burn properly. I gotta give it you that wisdom now. If we don't keep him like one, we're gonna lose him by him. If we no more like that and make him them patches of burnt country, well, we got enough fire break. Them big fire that is keep going. Burn them but everything. We're not the only one worried about them big wildfire. Scientists are watching too, from up there. That one friendly, I think. Now they can see what happens when we're not there to look after our country and the big wildfires take over. We can use them but that satellite too. It can show how our patch burning is going. Hey, just because we've got an ancient culture doesn't mean we have to be low tech, isn't it? Those scientists are probably up there watching us right now. Maybe they're hungry. Now, Dijan, a really important story I gotta give it you. Something you gotta think hard about. We've been telling about story and looking around got all the science mob.
So I don't know what we're gonna do about this.
And we've been learning about things on both sides.
Yeah, that's right. So
We've been showing them about burning properly way, about looking after country and fire. They've been worried about wildfires and something they've been called climate change. They reckon our patch burning them and cut down smoke pollution, which is full of greenhouse gases, and they've been causing but climate change. They reckon. Big story, that, huh? Anyway, look like we can work pretty good together. Biggest mob people around the world are worried. Worried about pollution and climate change. Lots of governments like ours are thinking of ways to get everybody to cut pollution. So they made it worth money to cut up pollution. Which means we can get paid for burning country the right way. Our traditional style burning. Cutting new tools, mind you, is good for us. Good for country and helps fight about climate change. I'm expert now, see? I'll tell you how it works. Big wild hot fires make millions of tons of pollution, you know? Greenhouse gas emissions. But when we burn them at the country right way, the amount of emission is only going to be a little one. You see, by one side, you got the amount of emission that would have been made by wildfire. Then take away the amount that's made if you can burn them up the right way. The difference is how many emission you can save by a traditional kind of burning. They've been measured in tons, and every ton you've been saved can earn but your one carbon credit. Then you can get money by selling but those credits. You won't always get them at that same price for every credit. It might be good price, or it might be not so good price. It depends on that market. First, I've been reckoning them talk gammon way. Now, I've been reckoning it might really work for us. Earn about money for proper work, you know, like country. But I'm also got to look out for our story and giving him true God one. Our law, even tell us how and why to look after Mimbala country. Families and ancestors, they've been all connected to that land. That's why we've got to sing our country, cry for it, and want to care for it. That money is just really all about getting back to our country, looking after it, and looking after ourselves. To make about this thing work, we're gonna have to work on a big mob family and another kind of different people. It takes a lot of country and support to set them up this kind of thing. Long story, not a little quick one. We'll do it properly way. We're gonna make our story stronger, no more losing. We gotta find out more about this opportunity. I reckon if we can understand it, we can make it work for us. It might help me grow you in below picking any up strong, and your grannies in years to come. Anyway, that's what I reckon. Still not sure about them satellites though.
Year before last, 3 ranger teams in the northern that were responsible for these ecologies here generated $800,000 in carbon abatement tax resources for their continued work. The science or the methodology is going to see in the next probably 5 years an additional 15 ranger teams in the southern sections of the Kimberley enter that economy and ecology. And by 2035, the third level of the methodology is going to see groups into the desert involved, particularly on the back of sequestration science methodology. Don't ask me to explain it because I'm not a scientist. But the methodology is going to take us all the way into the desert countries. Hopefully there's some stimulation and interest there. I think that's both a small scale and local story and a potentially big story. Thanks.